It's 94.3 Royal FM, the heartbeat of Kigali. Thank you so much for joining us today in this commemoration week of also the 100 days of commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi here in Rwanda. We thank you so much for your resilience. We thank you so much for being very strong, for managing to, withstand the feelings, the emotions, the hearts that come along with, especially when we remember during these difficult and hard days. But above all, remember, renew and then unite, because above everything else, we'll never witness that. And it's up to you and me to ensure that the genocide and the ideology are never, ever allowed to be sowed again, so that it can set its roots anywhere. We should not tolerate that. We should not allow it to happen anywhere, and we should fight. That's why we require concerted efforts, you and I, to ensure that we see this evil never happening again. My name is Angelo Ndungute, and today I'm joined by Bruno IRADUKUNDA. Bruno IRADUKUNDA is an author of one of my favorite books, some of the books I've read recently. And that book is called My Forgiveness Story. Bruno is a businessman, author, international speaker, and Bible scholar. So there's some aspect of Christianity and Christ in that. He's also a survivor of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. And Bruno's life is a powerful story of resilience, forgiveness, and transformation. So having walked the difficult path of forgiveness himself, he has spent over 10 years teaching and inspiring others in different countries to embrace the journey of forgiveness. He holds 2 bachelor's degrees, one in information sciences and another in theology. Bruno lives here in Rwanda, where he continues to impact lives through his work and message of forgiveness and obedience to God's word. It is the key word there, forgiveness, for me. Bruno, good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
How are you?
Thank you. Thank you
Great.
for having me.
Thank you so much. Your book, My Forgiveness Story, the biography, a memoir as well. I think I categorize it all through that, because the story that you narrate to us, you are a genocide survivor. By then you were, I think we're the same age. Yeah. So all these things, you may have not seen them happen, but you were told. And because you were told by people that experienced the atrocities, that experienced the hard times, the difficult times, definitely, yes, at a young age, you didn't, maybe you were trying to speak a few words. I remember my mother told me I could pronounce ba 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 at that age, 3 years around there, when all these things were happening. And eventually you come up with such a title, My Forgiveness Story, in this book. I know we're going to get into all that conversation of how best we can forgive, because forgiveness, as much as I know, is difficult, although we are commanded to forgive. But not everyone follows the commandments, First of all, thank you for allowing to come to share with us, to also add your voice once again, not only through your book, My Forgiveness Story, but also on radio and also visually. I know it's not been an easy journey for you, but finding the courage to share somebody who didn't witness but experienced through what he was told. Then you develop this, I may call it a stone on your heart, which you later came to release and let go through healing and forgiveness. Now here you are, you're impacting the nation. You're adding your break towards the nation's growth and building. Thank you so much. Take us through, first of all, what it was like in this case to develop. You've not seen it, but somebody narrates it to you. And then even to the point of somebody coming to, would I call it confessing? Not confessing, but to proudly say, I killed him, as we shall get into the other chapters in the book.
Thank you so much. And I want to start by comforting the Rwandan people this week of commemoration as we remember our loved ones that were killed during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. I want to say, Komera, be strong. As we say, to get back to what you asked. I think everything is passed on, be it a good legacy, be it bad legacy. The same way we receive from our parents stories from the kings, and even as Christians, we receive stories of the Bible and stories of what God has been doing from the people who were there before us. So everything that is done here will not only affect us, it will even affect the people that will come after us. So my own story, I was a bit confused. I didn't know much about the genocide. It was stories. I remember at first I used to go, because if you read the book, you find that the way I survived was through the nanny, which was a Hutu. So she had taught me to say that I'm a Hutu. So at 3 years old, telling them to say that you're Hutu, that's what you grow up knowing. So even at 5, 6, and you know how kids of 6 years speak a lot. So I always refer to myself as a Hutu. So that shows you how much I didn't know. So I could see sometimes my sisters getting angry at me when I say it, but I didn't know why. So later on, when I was exposed to the man you referred to who killed my father, that's when I had the interest to know what really happened in this country. So bitterness pushed me to start a journey of trying to find out what really happened in 1994. So starting from bitterness, so I went with judgment. Even the Bible in Hebrews says, don't let the bitter root grow in you. So for me, I started that journey already with a bitter root, judgment and expectation. So I think that's why it became very hard for me to navigate and know the history of Rwanda.
And at times, you talk about the root, that bitterness coming in you. Most people who become bitter find themselves becoming bitter. Not that they want to, but because it is, I don't know what I can call it, but it is something that probably develops in you because we get hurt.
Yeah.
And in our nature, human nature, we want to defend ourselves or to justify ourselves and want to counteract, oftentimes appear defensive in this case. Yes, now by the time you go to know the stories and developed this heart, you become emotional. I remember when you, in the book, you talk about developing this strong hatred on him and all the other people, that identified as the Hutu in this case, because of the atrocities that, and the way it's difficult to narrate and all that. But for somebody who understands, developing this hatred, people develop it without even wanting to. Somebody has done theology and probably with this Christian background and the way we understand the world. Is it the devil? Is it evil in us that eventually grows up and then makes us develop hatred? Would we blame the devil in this case? Although we can't defend the devil, because the devil is never good to the children of God.
I think there's the carnal nature in us. I have a friend who always says we are all born sinners. Even a baby who is still 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, mu kinyarwanda kiza cya kiki kinkomo yego.
A baby at 4 months old, no one teaches them to bite their mother.
Thank you.
But like when she doesn't feed them on time, when you breastfeed them, they bite you. And you would wonder who taught these kids to revenge. So in us, there's that evil nature that comes up easily. That's why when someone is offended or mistreated, what comes to our mind first is, how do I revenge? It's not how do I forgive or how do I bless this person. Every time is how do I get even? So I would say the devil, of course, has a part because he's the source of all evil, but also our carnal nature. And that's why, as much as it's not a gospel show, but that's why we need Jesus. He's the only one who kills that carnal nature in us, and then we can live for him. So the carnal nature in us is the root of all the evil that is in human.
Talking about the evil and the genocide against the Tutsi itself being evil, the Catholics would call it sacrilege. Good, you know that. An abomination in this case, something you never want to see or happen anywhere or to anybody whatsoever. When you look in your book, when you look at all the atrocities or the evil acts they did on the innocent people just because of an ideology, a hatred sowed on them, of course, through the history and then politics that were supporting that ideology, and in the climax of 1994 until the were liberated, thanks to the liberators and the good people that by then tried to help us. When you look at all these things and you look at the identity of that helped people to sow this hatred, even those who had married each other through intermarriages and all that could kill the other. Those who had given each other cows could end up killing one another. And all that hatred that transpired over that. In fighting the genocide ideology, I know we shall get to the forgiveness part, but just begin from there. In understanding that ideology, and currently to somebody who's listening to us or somebody who's going to listen to us later, maybe when it's posted, for example, these are the social media platforms or either on a podcast. What does the genocide ideology mean in this case? You're an author, somebody who understands this topic very well. What would this ideology mean to somebody and how would they fight it? Because it's sin.
That's an interesting question, and I'd say leadership. First of all, everything stands and falls on leadership. That's why I thank God for the leadership we have currently in Rwanda. Because the ideology itself was produced or sponsored by the leaders of Rwanda during that time. And the Rwanda we have today had to fight that ideology, and it's been 32 years old since the government is trying to fight the ideology of division and hatred.
And we are still fighting that.
Still fighting that. Every day we hear stories here and there of people who are still having those kind of ideas.
If they don't kill humans, they kill animals.
Yeah.
That's how hard.
Even destroy houses or just, even words that are not present. So I would say it stands on leadership. That's why I encourage the youth to be involved in politics. Sometimes we say, as Christians, we say You are not involved in the secular things. But as much as you avoid leadership and politics, they will decide for you. So that's why I encourage the youth who have good ideas to be part of what is being done in the country. Because if we say we want a different Rwanda, then we have to be involved in making it different. So I think people ignored what was happening since 1959, and the ideology started growing. There's a story that I always give of this young man. Apparently, he's among the people who killed many people during the genocide, and he was 16 or 18 years old during the genocide. And then when they interviewed him, when he was in jail, and they asked him, why did you kill so many people? He said, do you know how many years we carried them? And he was referring to the kings. So this guy, if he was born in the 70s, there was no king in Rwanda during 76 or 78. So he was referring to carrying the king because the parents, I'm sure that even his parents didn't carry the kings. Maybe his grandfather kept saying those things, and it was passed to the next generation, up to the next generation. So there's the role of the leaders, but there's the role also of the whole community, knowing this thing took us to the most, I would say, hell that we don't want to go back to. So it's our role to stop it, to stop passing that hatred, to stop passing that bitterness to the next generation. So I would say those two. I don't want to make it spiritual. I think it comes to us as Rwandans to say we need to put an end to this. And of course, we thank God for the leaders we have today.
Let's come back now to building to where you led to forgiveness and all that. In chapter 4 of your book, you say some of us survived. And in this case, your mother hid in the toilet, I think for a day plus, until the neighbors came back asking, the Sevarokotse some of the words may not use here, but there was that pain that was felt. To somebody, you've healed, you forgive. To somebody who could, for example, here, now in this case, for example, your mother, the husband has been, killed in this case, and you are the only son in the family. When you had this narration of how, of course, the toilet is never smelling good. In that case, I would imagine, for example, if it is a latrine in this case, the stench, the smell from there, and then somebody finds refuge there in those difficult moments. Such develop, now in this case, negative feelings in you. What legacy and challenge do you carry along in this case, especially in finding the fact that you have to help continue teaching about us fighting against the genocide ideology? And like you're still a youth in this case. And on social media, for example, people may not understand these atrocities or the tragedies, and some will brush them off and find as though those are just stories. How do you carry on the legacy of those who sacrificed to come and help us, save us, and then those who felt the pain, because you felt the pain? How do we now, in this case, carry on the legacy of those who are fighting for the survival and the overcoming of this ideology?
Let me answer it from another angle. That some people think that when you forgive, you are betraying your fellow survivors, or it's a weakness. But to me, I see forgiveness as a power that helps us to move forward. The scenario you just narrated of my mom being in the toilet for more than a day, not knowing where her kids are, not knowing. She already knew that her husband is killed. That pain, that remorse, not being able to grieve for your loved one, not knowing what tomorrow will be like or what time you'll be killed. So if I bring all those memories and then I choose I choose to be bitter, that bitterness will lead me into other things that are not good. I will not be helping her. But as you said, leaving the legacy we need to leave is to forgive and live. Because forgiveness is the power that helps us to live. But if I choose bitterness instead of being healed, I'll move. I will not be healed. I'll be something else. I've seen people who have chosen the other path, and they live in bitterness, they live in resentments, they don't have freedom in their relationship with others.
Is that what you call the jail of unforgiveness?
That's what I call the jail of unforgiveness. So I don't think the RPF fought so that we put ourselves in jail. I don't think it will be, I wouldn't be doing them an honor to choose to put myself in jail instead of living like a free Rwandan and help them to build for what they fought for. So I think forgiveness is the way to be able to fulfill what our elders started. Not saying that I forget what happened to my mom or to my fellow Rwandans. I can still remember, but I'm not a captive of those memories. So the legacies, let's choose to forgive and live so that we can build a better Rwanda and a better generation that will not repeat the history. I know they always say history repeats itself, but through healing and through forgiveness, we can stop the repetition of those memories.
You see, you're building towards forgiveness. Like you say, forgiving doesn't mean I forget what was done to me, but it's for my own benefit. In your, think if I'm not mistaken, it's your 7th chapter, you talk about walking in the swamp. What does that mean in people bashobora kuba kutwumviriza cyangwa tubona bakaba wenda bari stuck in this case with unforgiveness? Because a swamp is it igishanga?
Cyangwa isayo.
Exactly. Ntabwo ushobora kwiruka nk'uri kuri kaburimbo. You're stuck there. What did you mean in that chapter?
That's actually one of my favorite chapters because it demonstrates what forgiveness is. It's not an easy journey. His Excellence once said that one of the things that the hardest thing they asked survivors was to forgive, because forgiveness is hard. You think you have forgiven, and then something happens and
you break down
again. So that's the image of walking in the swamp, is because you think you have found a place where you're going to step, and then you go deeper. So forgiveness is not easy. And as I talk today, as I speak to Rwandans and friends of Rwanda and whoever that is struggling with unforgiveness, I'm not saying that it's easy, but it's a journey worth it. Because if you remain there, you're remaining in unforgiveness, and you sink deeper. But if you choose to take that journey, there is hope that you may find a stone to step on. So walking in the swamp is the exact image of someone who is walking in unforgiveness. But if you want healing, you keep pushing. So Jesus, in Luke 17, he says, Peter asks him, how many times do I forgive my brother? And he says 7 times 70. That's almost 490 times per day. So that means you have to forgive every 3 seconds, provided you don't sleep. So I think forgiveness, it's a process, and that's what I believe. It's a process, and it's a process that is worth it. Yeah.
And you say there's a quote actually, you use most quotes in your book, for example, Hebrews 12:14-15, that, but if you refuse to forgive your others, in this case your brother or your father, will not forgive your sins, because that means I also sin.
Yeah.
If I don't forgive you, that means my sins are not going to be forgiven.
Sure.
There's a quote from you that says that forgiveness is not for those who hurt you, it is for you. It's not about weakness, it's about strength. You talk about demystifying forgiveness. In this case, what is forgiveness? In real terms, now, in simple terms, kubabarira ni iki? Niba na ngombwa, you may even put in some Kinyarwanda kugira ngo wenda, if we have some people that are listening in and picking this, can probably pick a word or two.
Yeah. It will be a pleasure to even explain it more to Kinyarwanda speakers. Kuko twarabeshywe kenshi. Twigishijwe kubabarira mu buryo butari bwo. Aho twabwiwe ko tugomba kubabarira tukibagirwa. Twabwiwe ko kubabarira bikuraho ubutabera. Twabwiwe ko kubabarira ari intege nke. Ibyo byose ni ibinyoma twagiye twakira gukura kwacu, yaba mu nsengero ndetse no kuba twakuze twumva. Ariko kubabarira ntabwo ari ukwibagirwa. Kubabarira ntabwo ari intege nke. Kubabarira ni amahitamo, ntabwo ari ibyiyumviro. Forgiveness is not an emotion. It's not something you wake up wanting to do. So it's a choice that you have to make.
Uvuze ko ari amahitamo, umuntu afata umwanzuro akavuga uti mpisemo kubabarira, urugero Bruno. Kubera iki umuntu ahitamo kubabarira?
Good question. Uhitamo kubabarira kugira ngo ubeho. Nk'uko uhitamo kubyuka mu gitondo, ugiye ku kazi waryamye utinze, ntabwo ubishaka.
Ukuri.
Ariko ugomba guhitamo kubikora
kuko uzi inyungu
kubera bifite. Ugomba kujya gukora ukabaho. No kubabarira rero ni amahitamo dukoraho kugira ngo tubashe kubona inyungu zituruka mu kubabarira. Hari mu buzima, hari mu mudendezo, harimo ayo mahoro. Hari abantu benshi batagisinzira, hari abantu benshi barwaye imitwe idakira, hari abarwayi ibifu, hari abantu batagica mu nzira kubera ko azi ko iyo nzira ashobora kuyiyoboramo na runaka. Hari umuntu utacyambara ishati y'umutuku kuko uwamuhemukiye yambaye ishati y'umutuku. Kubabarira rero ni uguhitamo kuvuga ati ndashaka kurenga ibi byose, nkabaho ubuzima bwanjye, nkabasha kujya ku isoko n'ikanga runaka, nkabasha kongera kwambara imyenda yanjye kubera ko nagendeye ku bya runaka, nkabasha kongera kuryama nkasinzira. So ni uguhitamo ubuzima. Guhitamo ubuzima. So warumbaje kuki dukwiye guhitamo kubabarira kugira ngo tubeho. Kubabarira kugira ngo ubeho.
Kubaho ngo ni ukubaho upfuye kubaho cyangwa ukagira umutekano.
Kubaho ubuzima bwuzuye.
Umutima wawe. Ubuzima bwuzuye is purposed life.
Yego. Fulfilled life.
So nyuma gato kubabarira kuko nicyo tugezeho, nacyo kikunze kugora abantu. You forgave the man because waje kumenya uwishe your father, but it was difficult for you, especially kuko wababariye ndetse n'abamukomokaho bose n'abitwaga bose ngo n'abantu bose. Yaje gute kugira ngo wumve ugira izo mbaraga to forgive Mr. Is it Gahutu? Yes. Kugira ngo wabare Mr. Mutware Gahutu, you know, and even everybody who participated in the genocide. Izo mbaraga that kuko like I said, harashobora kuba bagihura n'ibibazo kugira mbabarire kanaka oya, ahubwo napfa nkimufitiye iyo nziga ku mutima. But of course you said kubabarira ntabwo avuga ngo ni ukwibagirwa, but kugira ngo ubone amahoro mu mutima wawe, ubu ubuzima bwuzuye nk'uko uvuze, that fulfilled life, ugomba kubabarira something that you did. Kuko like you said in the book, hari ingero nyinshi wagiye utanga ukibwira ko wababarira ariko kongera ugasubira hahandi. Se ni wa musaraba undi bivuze iki? In this case bitwara iki kugira ngo umuntu ababarire?
Mu kibazo cyawe bishobora gusoundinga nkaho ndi superhero, ariko ndashima Imana ko nabishoboye kumubabarira ndetse no kubabarira n'abandi muri rusange, ariko ntabwo ari ibintu byoroshye. Nubwo mbivuga, nubwo nabyanditseho igitabo, nubwo mbivuga ahantu henshi, ni urugendo rutoroshye. Ari nayo mpamvu mvuga ngo kubyishoboza wowe ubwawe ntabwo bishoboka. To be honest my brother, forgiveness without God, it's almost impossible. I always define the grace of God as the power that enables us not to sin. Iyo tuvuga ubuntu bw'Imana tuba tuvuga izo mbaraga zinshoboza kutabaho ubuzima bw'abisi. Kuba nasinda njye mu kabari, si uko ndi umuntu w'igitangaza, ahubwo nuko hari imbaraga z'Imana
kandi si uko utabyigeze,
si uko zitakuryohera, ahubwo ni imbaraga z'Imana zigushoboza kubaho ubwo buzima nk'umujene, ukavuga ati bisemo kwitandukanya n'ibi ngibi. Rero kubabarira hakeneyemo imbaraga z'Imana. Ndashima Imana cyane ku bwa leta y'u Rwanda, bitwigisha kenshi kugira ngo uhindure imitekerereze yacu. Ariko nkanashishikariza abantu gusaba Imana imbaraga. Umuntu uri kutwumva, uri kutureba, avuga ati njye biroroshye kubabarira umuntu wanyibye, biroroshye kubabarira umuntu wavuze, biroroshye kubabarira umumotari wantwaye nabi, ariko kumbwira ngo mbabarira abanyiciye muri jenoside, aho ntuhajye. Ikintu namushishikariza ni ukwemerera Imana ikaza muri icyo gice nacyo, nacyo akacyemerera, akakigendanamo n'Imana. Kuko kubimubwira gutya ushobora no kuvuga ati ceceka wa mwana we, wowe bivuga kuko wabibwiwe, ntabwo wabibonesheje amaso yawe, kandi dukeneye kubumva. Ni nayo danger hari mu rubyiruko. We tend to assume we understand the older generation. Aba bantu babonye ibintu biteye ubwoba. Bamwe babonye abagore babo bafatwa ku ngufu, abandi babonye ababyeyi babo bafatwa ku ngufu, abandi babonye impinja zabo bari bamaze igihe gitoya bafite zicwa imbere yabo. So uwo muntu kumubwira ngo apfe kubabarira gutyo gusa biragoye, kandi n'Imana irabyumva. Kimwe mu byo mvuga mu gitabo ni uko mvuga ngo Imana izi ububabare bwawe. God understands your pain. Nta nubwo iri kukubwira ngo ibyabaye ntacyo bivuze, ko kubabarira si cyo bivuze. Kubabarira ntabwo bivuga ngo ibyabaye biciye amazi. It doesn't mean that what happened doesn't matter. It matters in the eyes of God. It matters to me who is saying it to you. It matters to you because it's your history. Ariko ukeneye kubirenga. Ndakuvuga ngo ntuzatume umuntu waguhemukiye akubuza isi ngo akubuze n'ijuru. Umuntu akakwicira akaba akiguhetse iyi myaka 32. One of my friend yasoreza kuraka, akunda kuvuga ngo kutababarira ni nko kwemerera umuntu agatura mu mutima wawe atakwishyura ubukode. Ugahora umwikoreye, wasitara ati ni runaka, waburara ati ni runaka yatanyicira, mfite abavandimwe mugiraho. ugasanga ubuzima bwawe bwubakiye kuri uwo muntu. So Imana irifuza ko turenga aho hantu, ubuzima bwacu ntitubwubakire ku baduhemukiye, ahubwo tukabaho ubuzima bwuzuye.
It's 94.3 Royal FM, the heartbeat of Kigali, and we are with Bruno IRADUKUNDA. He's the author of My Forgiveness Story, and we thought we would share with him during these days of commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi, 1994, and he's sharing with us his story of forgiveness and helping us understand what it means to forgive. And to you that hasn't forgiven, it's not easy, we know, and you have a right to feel bad because you cannot clap at something bad done to you that you can't keep in that heart because it doesn't do you good. However, you can renew, and I think renewing is in you choosing to forgive, and then you live a life because you're still alive. Bruno, tugana ku musozo, hari ingero nyinshi wagiye utanga mu gitabo cyawe. It's a very good book, My Forgiveness Story. Izo ngero nyinshi cyane cyane the stories that came from people who had been suffering because they had not forgiven. Ariko bamara kubabarira ibikomere bari bafite cyangwa se indwara baga bafite bakisanga zitakiri mu buzima bwabo. I want you to pick one specific story. I know there's the pastor's wife and n'izindi wagiye utanga. I want you to give us one example mu gitabo cyawe cy'umuntu wababariye hanyuma bya bindi byifashe mu buzima bwe bikareko.
Yeah. One of my favorite stories is the story of this British guy and
the Irish
guy.
Yes.
Yeah, and I want to demonstrate how much our history. I want to relate this story with the season that we are in as Rwandans. How our history can impact the world. So I met an Irish guy. I was helping him in his journey of healing. This guy had, he went to a club and he was raped by his fellow men. And since that day, he became gay. So because of the rape, and he found himself continuously doing, practicing whatever they do.
ahubwo nakifuje tuvuge mu Kinyarwanda kugira ngo
iyi nkuru yumvikane neza. Nandi kuvuga ngo yashaka kwerekana imbaraga z'amateka yacu turamutse twize amasomo ari amateka yacu twigisha tukagira ubwo budaheranwa no gukomera, icyo bishobora kugira ingaruka atari ku Banyarwanda gusa no ku isi hose. Murumbajije inkuru iri mu gitabo imwe muri zo, imwe mu nkuru nkunda ni inkuru y'umugabo wo mu Bwongereza, igice cyabo bita aba Irish. Twahuriyeyo ndi kumufasha mu rugendo rwe rwo gukira, ariko uwo mugoroba duhura yari yaje afite umugambi wo kwiyahura bukeye bwaho. So yari aje kurangizanya n'Imana cyangwa kwatura ibyaha bye kugira ngo nimucya mu gitondo ajye kwiyahura, kuko yari amaranye iminsi ikibazo cyo kuryama yabyuka agasanga yiyanduje. Yari yaragiye mu kabyiniro, agezeyo yasinze, yagiye muri toilette, abandi bagabo bagenzi be baramukurikira bamufata ku ngufu, bamufashe ku ngufu yisanga yarahindutse umutinganyi, anakomeza kubikora kugeza aho ageraho harekuka atagishobora
gufunga.
Rero uko aryamye akabyuka yiyanduje. Umugabo cyo ni ikibazo gikomeye, pride n'ibiki byose, kuko yari yarigeze kumenya Imana, azaho ahantu nigaga, aje nko muri purgatori nk'uko abakatolika babyita, kugira ngo yature ibyaha bye ajye kwiyahura.
Ubona ni penitensi wenda.
Penitensi. So penitensi arangije ndi kumufasha of course mu Bwongereza tuganira ntabwo wemerewe kubwira umuntu ko ubutinganyi ari icyaha. Turacyafite amahirwe yo kubivugira ku air uyu munsi. Ambwiye ikibazo cye, musaba kuba yababarira abamufasha. Ikintu gitangaje nta nubwo yarangije kuvuga amagambo, yavuze ngo bisemo kubabarira runaka, ahita yikubita hasi. Atari na bya bindi byo mu rusengero umuntu arikubita hasi ngo
ikintu cyari kimufashe.
Yego, yikubise hasi, turamufasha, turamuhungiza, akanguka n'amasaha twari dufitanye yarangiye, cyane ko abazungu bubahiriza amasaha. Tutari bubashe kumubaza se byagenze bite, urumva umeze ute, tumwohereza aho yagombaga kujya kurara, ajya kuryama. Ikintu cyanangaje bukeye bwaho, yaje yishimye, afite umunezero mu maso. Arambwira ngo mu bwa mbere mu gihe kinini maze mbyutse nsa neza, kandi ndumva Imana yanyijije ububabare n'ibindi byose numvaga ntabigihari. Kubera iki? Kuko yahisemo kubabarira.
Kwa kwitura hasi wenda Imana arimo gukora ibyayo.
Imana yikoreye umurimo, sinavuga ngo ninjye wamusengeye. Isengesho twasenze njye n'uwo twari turi kumwe ryari ryo kuvuga ati Imana abyuka amahoro, kumuvuga ati umuntu w'abandi. Ariko ndashima Imana ikibasha kudukiza iyo duhisemo kubabarira. Rero kubabarira bifite inyungu irenze gukira k'umutima gusa. Hari n'indwara z'umubiri zikira kubera ko umuntu yahisemo kubabarira.
Ni inkuru nziza, and I thank God. Abantu benshi bagiye bahitamo kubabarira. Many people, there are very many examples. Iyo uhisemo kubabarira uvuga ngo ni ikintu uba ni nk'ikite a gift to yourself. Harimo no kwikunda, I think.
Kubabarira niwe bifitiye inyungu kurusha guhemukira.
Bruno, we are in these days of commemoration as we get to the end. In a nutshell, like you said in this book, My Forgiveness Story, tugiye kwaje kubabarira, of course, from the testimonies, urwababaye, and then kugeza wahisemo kubabarira. And I want your last message in this case, to anybody. If uzashobora gasoma iki gitabo cyangwa nutazagisoma, I would encourage everyone to read this book. What is that message?
Let me read it from the book so that I encourage people to find it. It's one of my I always quote it. Sorry, yes. So my message will be this. Unforgiveness can turn inward, leaving you feeling ashamed or blaming yourself for the hurt you carry. I often heard survivors saying, abeza barashize, twasigaye ngo turushye iminsi. The good ones have died. We were left to struggle through the days. Oh, Imana ihamagara abeza. God calls the best home. When they say this, they're often expressing the deep wish that they had died instead, or wondering why they survived when others did. So my message is to any survivor today who is still wondering why they were left or why they survived. And I want to say, you survived because God had a plan on your life. survived so that you can tell the stories. You survived so that you can build the Rwanda. So kubarokotse twarokotse kugira ngo twubake u Rwanda, twarokotse kugira ngo tuvuge inkuru, ntabwo twarokotse kugira ngo duhinduke imbwa cyangwa duhinduke iciro ry'imigani. Reka tubabarire tubeho, duheshe n'agaciro abacu twabuze. That would be my message.
Thank you so much, Bruno. IRADUKUNDA is the author of My Forgiveness Story. It's Real FM 94.3, and in these commemoration days, let's remember, renew, and unite. Thank you for listening.